From the last meeting of the Master of Mankind and his Primarch son Magnus, there was an offer of forgiveness, of redemption, and of salvation. As documented by the scholar of this meeting, Magnus refused the offer and embraced demonhood. Here, a warp entity alters that timeline. Instead of refusing the offer, the Primarch embraces his father, and the Thousand Sons stand with the Imperium through the rest of the Horus heresy. The Solar Brotherhood are above all else fiercely loyal and faithful to the Emperor and his vision for the Imperium. After being offered forgiveness for their Legion's previous offences, for ignoring the edicts of Nicaea, the arrival of Magnus into the Imperial Palace with a tide of demons at his heels, these and all of the Legion's sins were forgiven by the Emperor himself, and the sons of Magnus joined the Imperium once again to fight against chaos. The Solar Brotherhood is the name that this Legion chose to have henceforth, renouncing the Thousand Sons' history and moving forwards with pride, their use of psychic abilities allowed, but regulated. Magnus and his sons then grew their legion back to the size befitting an army of the Imperium, using new technologies and advanced armours and weapons gifted from the Master of Mankind himself. So, Thousand Sons, obviously very much a point of contention among Warhammer fans, whether or not they're a loyalist or traitor, or whether or not Magnus did something, if anything, wrong. They have always been an army that has stood out to me. They've always been an army I've wanted to pursue both aspects of loyalty, of traitorhood or loyalists, and until recently an army that I'd not actually done both sides of that coin. I originally did 1,000 Suns for Warhammer 40,000 when 8th edition came out and the new Magnus model came out. I did an army for them then. But to me, the 1,000 Suns have always been more than that simplistic sort of they are traitor. There's always been something more to them, and I think especially with the recent developments in books and in the literary works by Games Workshop, it has allowed for a lot more prospects and a lot more sort of headcanon prospects of whether you want them to be loyalists or whether you want them to be traitors. And The Fury of Magnus is the book that offers that option and that way of thinking better than any other literary piece by Games Workshop, in my opinion. And I definitely think that the book opens up some good questions as to, why Magnus was made out to be this arch traitor that sort of brought the demons themselves to terror and sort of raised the Imperial Palace, in the sense of he came to warn the Emperor, but in his folly and his hubris, he led the demons straight to terror. And that's always been the point that a lot of people, when they've done the memes and the Magnus did nothing wrong, that's where they sort of say, well, how can you say that using psychic powers and astral projections to warn the Emperor that Horus has betrayed the Emperor, why would he use psychic powers? Because obviously that's what the demons used to hone in on terror, and obviously caused a lot of problems for the Emperor, and therefore it meant that he was then bound to the Golden Throne and he couldn't go out and continue his works or work on his secret projects, the Webway project or anything like that. It meant that he was actually ensnared into this trap of sitting on the Golden Throne holding the tide of chaos back, which a lot of people say that it's Magnus's fault for breaking the edicts of Nicaea and stuff, but at the same time, if you put yourself in his shoes, maybe you could see it from his side. But we're not here to discuss whether or not they're loyalists or traitors. A lot of people will say they're traitors, and you might get one or two that say no, they're not, they're loyalists. And I think The Fury of Magnus, the recent novella from the Siege of Terror, beautifully outlines the thoughts and the background to where Magnus has gone since he sort of came to terror warn the Emperor? What has he been up to in his own mind and his inner conflicts and stuff? And I definitely recommend that if you're sort of and ahhing about the siege, that you definitely read The Fury of Magnus if you're interested in the Thousand Sons, because it details a little bit about the siege and what's going on in the background. But if you've heard the myths and stuff and you know a little bit about the Siege of Terra, then you can sort of piece together where it is. But this book seems to show Magnus's inner demons and inner conflicts of why he's done what he's done and where his head is at when he comes to Terra, because it is him on Terra, and it's the first time he's sort of been on Terra since he's become this traitor. And it just shows there's actually a beautiful moment between him and another character where you can sort of see that perhaps he might turn back against Horus, and he gets offered a chance of redemption, and if he took that, what would that mean for the Imperium? And that's what I decided I wanted to focus on with the Solar Brotherhood. So my Thousand Sons, my red shining Thousand Sons army for the Horus Heresy is a loyalist one. I did it as a headcanon army. I spoke with Croydon and Jarl and Minion to see if it was okay if we play games where I've done a headcanon sort of army, and where the beauty of this army lies is the fact that I've used models that everyone says is traitor and everyone plays as traitor because that's how the rules tell you to play them. But allowing for this headcanon space and this place where I can make an army a way that I want to make an army has really meant that I can have a bit of fun with an army that I wouldn't normally play with, especially being such a keen loyalist player that I am. It's been quite nice with them allowing me to use the models and paint the models and actually have an excuse for them, whilst I've been wanting to do something a bit different, and that's exactly what I've done. Now, the Solar Brotherhood, what I wanted a little force of psychic powers, and nothing too complex, but at the same time something that was a bit more fun. As a gaming group, not many of us have access to psychic powers, so it felt quite nice that I could have the access, and it meant that I could have an edge over everybody that I was playing against. And I decided to go with 2 Praetors. Oh no, I think I went with 1 Praetor, which was the Terminator Praetor, and then I got the characters Magistus Aemon, Ahriman and Magnus. I also got a Castellax and some of the Terminators and the actual Blade Occult as well. So I've got a nice little force of Thousand Sons that are ready for the battle and ready for tabletop. But as it's been a project I've done in the pandemic, it's actually not been played with, and it's been put in a box straight away without me actually getting a chance to use it, which is fine. I'll get around to it, but it's going to be a lot of fun to run these alongside my Custodes or my Dark Angels, or even my Knights or Titans and the Imperial Fortress, which again is something I'm looking forward to using, looking forward more and more as the weeks progress and we start looking at the lockdowns maybe lifting as well. So yeah, they're a lot of fun to have done this headcanon army. And in the Fury of Magnus, I won't spoil anything, but in the Fury of Magnus is offered something new, and me and Jarl have been discussing it quite a bit, and what that something new is something that's quite exciting. And it means that it means for my army I can actually add something in that I hadn't actually considered adding in, to make it sort of a bit more of a headcanon lore friendly army. And I'm really looking forward to doing something like that. It's going to be nice to sort of put the rule books aside and go for the modelling more than sort of the gaming aspect. It's been something that I've always wanted to do with an army, and go with sort of a more of a lore friendly but headcanon friendly more than anything army. And I think having this force of loyalist Thousand Sons and this sort of way into making a loyalist Thousand Sons army is definitely going to be the way that I get to do that. And I hope that everybody can understand and just sort of goes, well, live and let live. It's your choice, Smorganite. It's your choice whether you want to you want to do an army, a loyalist, or Thousand Sons, and I hope there's no backlash or anything, but for me, having sort of a headcanon army, it's the first time I've done it, so it's going to be quite nice to explore that avenue. And I know Minion's looking forward to it, and he's still reading the Siege of Terror books at the moment, so he actually hasn't had a chance to read The Fury of Magnus yet, but when he does, I will be discussing with him heavily about what this means and where this is going for the Thousand Sons. But looking on the website as well, we've actually got a Solo Brotherhood page for the Thousand Sons, so I'll put the link in the description of this podcast, and there are going to be some more photographs coming soon. I've not actually had a chance to take many because, as I say, they got put straight in a box and they haven't actually been used. So I think the most recent photo is one of 10 of the Sekhmet Terminators, along with the 3 characters and the Praetor, and then the Castellax as well. So it will be nice to actually take some pictures of the Blade Occult as well, so that I've got sort of the vast array of models that I've done. I also think I did a Rhino for the Force as well. It was in January that I did it, and this is recording in April, so it is a few months ago since I painted them. But yeah, I'll upload some more photos soon, and we'll get them out of the box and get them back in the studio taking photographs, so that we can add to that page. And maybe I'll do an update podcast of where the legions come to from where it was before, which will be quite fun to do. I did enjoy doing it for the Solar Legion, the Dark Angels, so it would be nice to do it for something like the Thousand Sons as well. So yeah, so that's just a brief little roundup of where I decided this army would come from. It's not as long as some of the others perhaps, just purely because there's not as much to say on this, because I've really done quite a small force, and that's how I want it to be. So it'll be featured on the page, on the Instagram page, on our website, and in the podcast soon. I'm sure when the pandemic's lifted and we can start having proper conversations with people, it'll be nice to bring that up and see what the other team members' thoughts are on it. So, all right, well, thank you very much for listening to this podcast about the Loyalist Thousand Sons. I hope you're all doing well, and take care.